I'd like to call to order the regular Planning Commission meeting of Wednesday, February 18th. And if Commissioner Crandall would please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join the Commission and the City staff in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Mr. Petches, would you call the roll, please?
Certainly. Commissioner Eggleston.
Here.
Commissioner Barnes. Here. Chair Darden.
Here.
Commissioner Crandall.
Here.
Commissioner Rulin.
Here.
Commissioner Smith.
Here.
And Commissioner Brown is absent this evening.
Okay, and before we start our meeting tonight, I just think we should acknowledge that this will be our last meeting with Ajit, the city attorney, and I hope you know, Ajit, how much we all have appreciated your guidance over the years and how critical it has been in our decision-making, and I certainly want to thank you personally for your guidance on ethical issues when I've asked you questions personally. So thank you so much, and we wish you well in your next assignment. Okay. So that brings us to the minutes. We have two sets of minutes for approval tonight. One is from the study session of February 4th. Are there any changes or a motion for approval?
I move approval if there are no changes.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, that passes 6-0. And then that brings us to the minutes of the regular meeting of the City of San Clemente Planning Commission on February 4th. Are there any changes? I see some changes. Vonnie, you had some changes?
Yes, I had several edits, and I've given a copy to Eileen. And on page 5, paragraph 2, I would suggest we replace the pronoun they or them with the applicant as follows. Line 5, the city is making the applicant install the wall if they want to put the transformers in the alternative location. The applicant would prefer to install the transformers in the alternate location before the wall is constructed, in the odd chance that the applicant decides not to install.
And let me just ask, so that's, is that because that's the quote as it was, or because you're just clarifying because it wasn't
clarifying who they
clear?
is.
Okay.
Okay. And then on page 6, paragraph 2, if you would be so kind as to please edit the references that were provided by Commissioner Barnes to substantiate the findings. And I included the city code, the general plan, and the coastal elements as follows. In the paragraph is she does not believe some of the findings have been met, specifically with regard to whether denial of the request would result in a hardship, and parentheses SCMC 17.16.080, and questioned whether construction of a solid wall allows the public access in compliance with the Coastal Act provisions in the general plan. Reference GP C3 and C4, coastal element SCCE, Resolution 9591, A2 through A4, and the City Code SCMC 17.56.050. Thank you.
Is that clear, Eileen? Or did you have a question?
Yes, I just wanted to say that unless things are specifically said during the meeting, they really can't be added later.
I've cited the codes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you cited the code during your testimony?
Yes, I did.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other changes? Then perhaps a motion?
I'll move we accept the minutes as amended.
I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, passes 6-0. That brings us to oral and written communication. At this point, members of the audience may address the Commission on members of public interest which pertain to the city and are not otherwise on the agenda. If you wish to speak, please step forward to the microphone, state your name and city of residence, and make your presentation. Please limit your presentation to 3 minutes. Eileen, we don't have any cards, do we, at this time? Oh, but we do have someone stepping forward. Okay. If you wouldn't mind giving her your card afterwards. Or,
I gave it to her.
I do have a card for you, but
I checked both boxes. I was trying to be efficient.
Oh, okay.
Are you going to speak to all the items that are Capistrano Shores tonight as well?
Well, just got to see how it goes, I guess.
Okay. All right.
Hopefully not.
But this is for an item not on the agenda.
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
Commissioners, Chair, we sent a letter, the Lawton firm sent a letter earlier today about the coastal land use plan and the suggested changes that we had to the draft that's out there. And we were hoping to kind of get ahead of this thing rather than behind it like we are in so many other items going on right now at the city. And we're asking that maybe you can direct Jim and the city manager and some others to sit down with us and try to figure out if there's a way that Capistrano Shores and the city can come to an agreement on how the local coastal land use plan affects Capistrano Shores. We are unique. We're different. We're the only residential community on the other side of the railroad tracks. We are a mobile home park. We have mobile home laws that we have to adhere to. And we're just asking, before this thing gets too far down the road and it leads to other things, that maybe we could get in a room and just try to just kind of mimic the language a little bit to where we're happy and you're happy and you'll get through coastal too. So it's just a request.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you.
Jim, do you have any thoughts or reaction about the request?
Well, other than we did receive the comments, and we're forwarding it on as part of all the public comments toward the LCP, and any public comments will be considered as part of the process, so they're involved as any member of the process would be. And so everything that they make and have submitted will be taken into consideration. And, you know, I know that at least some of those were discussed at the hearing with the Coastal Advisory Committee, and the Coastal Advisory Committee, I think, actually supported some of those recommendations. So,
All right, thank you. Okay, is there anyone else who wishes to speak at this time? Okay, seeing no one, we'll move on to the public hearings. The public hearing process includes a staff presentation, a presentation by the applicant not to exceed 10 minutes, and public testimony. To facilitate the meeting for all attendees, the public is asked to limit their individual presentation to 3 minutes. Following closure of the public hearing, the Planning Commission will respond to questions raised during the hearing, discuss the issues, and act upon the matter by motion. The first matter is item 8A, 2727 Via Cascadita, Suite 1, conditional use permit 15-014, Poche Burger and Kitchen, full alcohol. Mr. Tamian?
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Planning Commissioners. My name is Adam Tamian. I'm an associate planner, and today I'm presenting the project for the conditional use permit number 15-014. This is the Poche Burger and Kitchen, full alcohol. The restaurant is located at 2727 Via Cascadita in Suite I. This is located in the shopping center known as the DMV Center. And this is also within the neighborhood commercial NC 1.1 zone on the northern western portion of the city. The restaurant site is a 1,400 square foot suite within a larger commercial center. The restaurant has recently received approval for beer and wine service. However, due to the way that the ABC issues their permits, the applicants were not aware that they were eligible for a lottery for a full alcohol license until after they had received a minor conditional use permit for the sale of beer and wine. So they quickly reapplied for a conditional use permit to continue with that application through the ABC. The restaurant currently has indoor and outdoor seating. The outdoor seating currently has no fencing around it because there's no alcohol service. But as part of the beer and wine approvals, the applicant came in and got a staff waiver for some fencing that will be installed outside, and it's compatible with the architecture of the center. The surrounding land uses on the site are residential to the northeast and south, and commercial to the west. The applicant is proposing the sale and on-site consumption of a full range of alcohol. This is going to be indoors and outdoors. The restaurant will provide 46 indoor seats and 18 outdoor seats. The seating is currently all sit down. However, there is going to be a counter portion around the bar that would alter the layout of the floor plan. However, the total seats would be limited to 46. The operating hours of the restaurant are 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week, and the applicant's requesting alcohol service during just those normal operating hours. And there's no live entertainment or amplified sound as part of this application. The zoning ordinance allows restaurants with full service of alcohol to be conditionally permitted in the NC 1.1 zone, and this use is consistent with the general plan policies as listed in the staff report. The alcohol will all be served in an enclosed area, pending the installation of the fence, and the nearest residence is approximately 100 feet away. That 100 feet is to the mobile home park that's directly behind the restaurant. There is also residence more in an easterly direction in the Shore Cliffs area. The closest one of those residences is about 275 feet away. The use is not anticipated to generate any significant impacts to neighboring properties in terms of the intensity of the restaurant, noise, or traffic, and that's due in part to the requirements of the type of alcohol license that they're going for being at a bona fide eating place. So this is really an ancillary use to a restaurant, and it's not a bar in that sense where it's only for alcohol service. They're required to have a majority of their sales still come from food. Staff is supportive of this application because it meets the findings for a conditional use permit, those being that the use is allowed in the zone, the site is suitable for the proposed use, and the use is consistent with the intent of the zone, and it's compatible with the mix of uses that exist in the area currently. As with all of our conditional use permit applications that involve alcohol service, there are some special conditions of approval that staff applies to the resolution. The most important of these are listed as number 9 is that the applicant is required to maintain a business that is consistent with the city's noise ordinance, and that they're responsible to deal with any noise-related complaints. Number 10 is that the applicant is responsible for resolving any issues that may arise from the use of the site with neighboring properties. And the 11th is that police and code compliance divisions have the can require modification to the operating hours if necessary. If it's deemed by either division that the hours of operation are really not compatible with maintaining a use that does not negatively impact surrounding areas. So with that, staff recommends approval of the conditional use permit for Poche Burger and Kitchen full alcohol as conditioned. That concludes staff's presentation. Staff is available for any comments.
Okay, I see several lights on, so I know several of the commissioners have questions for you, Adam. I have a question. I had difficulty when I was visiting the site envisioning how you would have or how the applicant would create a 5-foot clear pathway outside the area where the fence is, because it seemed that there are the columns that go along that walkway. But clearly you've checked that carefully, so that won't be an issue. There will definitely be a clear pathway.
Yes, they will end up being the tables that they'll need to have in that area will necessarily need to be a little bit thinner, but there is enough distance between the columns and the front of the building to provide a 5-foot wide walkway and enough space for the seats that they have. They were previously approved for and this is not Poche Burger, but this was the old Corky's restaurant, was approved for an outdoor dining permit, which allows them, to use pretty much all of that space for outdoor seating. I believe it was up to 7 tables and 28 seats at that point. In order for them to serve alcohol out there, they're going to need to keep it contained, and as part of that, it's going to need to come a little bit closer to the building, just to make sure that people don't have to walk through gates to get through the center.
Okay, thank you. Bart?
Yeah, Adam, this is the first time I've been involved in this census tract finding we have to make. Can you explain that a little more? And is the Shorecliff Golf Course in that census tract?
The Shorecliff Golf Course is in that census tract.
Because it wasn't mentioned here, and I was just curious
if
that matters.
Well, it may have been an oversight, but when I looked up conditional use permits and places that sell alcohol, they didn't come up. That doesn't mean that they may have been serving alcohol for such a long time that they didn't require a use permit.
Been serving a long time.
So the census tract, the ABC has they keep track of how many alcohol licenses they give in any certain geographic area, and they decided to use census tracts. For this census tract, for whatever reason, one alcohol license in a restaurant, in a bona fide eating place, is what they would consider I don't want to say acceptable, but that's just their kind of a limit that they would like to see. And anything above that is, they call it overconcentration. Well, this census tract is basically this shopping center, all of Shorecliffs, Marblehead Inland, Marblehead Coastal, and the northwestern side of Pico, as it's on the west side of the freeway. So it gets the Hanson's Market and the Nobu Sushi that's over there. And it's that Nobu Sushi has a beer and wine license. And so that one restaurant that's about 3 miles away creates an overconcentration for this census tract. Whereas if a restaurant had opened up on the other side of via, what is that street? Camino Capistrano, it would not be in the same census tract, and the ABCs, wouldn't have such, when that would not factor into whether there was an overconcentration. So it's not that it cannot be approved, but the city needs to make a finding that there is it's a matter of public convenience to allow this use to come in.
Okay.
Thank you.
Jim?
A couple questions. One is, I noticed that the hours of operation start at 8 a.m. Is that common for the restaurants to be able to serve alcohol as early as 8 a.m.?
Typically, we limit when they have to stop serving alcohol. We will normally apply alcohol service to the hours of operation that they state and that they apply for. You could limit that. I think typically it's not done because it's just a difficult thing to enforce.
Okay. And I wanted to revisit Julia's question regarding the space on the sidewalk, because I actually had the pleasure today of spending 3 hours at the DMV, and I wish someone was selling alcohol this morning. But there is a lot of people, especially in the morning. That line goes far past that restaurant, and I wanted to make sure that there was going to be room with those pillars and the tables. Right now, the line actually goes between 2 rows of tables. Mm-hmm. And, I know the question's been asked and answered, but I guess I wanted to verify what kind of measurement you used. Did you make sure that between the pillars and where the fence is going to be, there's space for someone to walk by comfortably? Because it seems like every morning there's probably going to be that death march that I took, into the DMV.
Well, the line for the DMV was not really taken into consideration in terms of if there was a line there and somebody else wanted to walk through. Typically, in these kinds of areas, we're looking for a 5-foot wide pathway because it provides enough, space for people to maneuver about easily through a shopping center. Having an outdoor dining permit that allows them to have tables out there it's going to be tight. even if they just maintain the use as it currently is and don't even go to selling alcohol out there. We measure the space, and they basically are limited not to how much space is left over when they have the tables, but they're limited to the amount of space that's required to have a 5-foot wide walkway around everything.
And that, it's a total of almost 15 feet there, I guess, from the measurements you have on the thing. So that 5 feet, is it from the edge of the sidewalk, or is it from the edge of those pillars? I'm guessing it's from the edge of the sidewalk.
I believe it's from the edge of the pillars.
Oh, from the edge of the pillars, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you.
Wayne?
I have two questions. What are the current hours of operation?
The current hours of operation are, I believe, are 8 a.m. to 9 p.m.
8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Okay, and the second question is what type of notices were given to the mobile home community immediately adjacent to it?
They were, everybody that owns property within 300 feet of the subject site would be mailed notices, and there was 3 notices posted on the property fronting the public street.
Did we receive any comments from the mobile home community?
I did not receive any public comments from the mobile home community. I did receive a public comment from somebody that lives in the Shore Cliffs community.
Thank you.
Michael?
Is there nighttime entertainment proposed for this facility?
No, there's not.
Okay.
Okay, are there any other questions for staff? Okay, is the applicant here, and would they like to step forward?
Yes.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me. Adam, thank you. So Adam covered a lot of things for me, but just a little bit of myself. I'm the chef and owner of Poche Burger and Kitchen, and basically cooking is my passion. So this alcohol license that we want to attach to this is just to kind of complement the food. So the food comes first for me, always, and I'm just here to ensure you guys that that's always the way it's going to be. Let's see, and some of the questions that you guys had in regards to the outdoor seating that you've seen already, we are going to have to make it smaller than what it currently is because we want it to operate smoothly and work, well with the shopping center. And in regards to serving alcohol at 8 a.m., we will not be serving alcohol at 8 a.m. The earliest we'll be starting on the weekends would probably be around 11 a.m., just so you guys know. And pretty much, I'm a local here, and I've been living here for the last 3 years, and I just want to add, more jobs to the community and, bring a better restaurant and food to this area. So that's pretty much it.
Are there any questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so at this point, we'll open the public hearing and ask anybody who wishes to speak to this issue to step forward at this time. And Eileen, we have no cards for this one? Okay. All right, then we'll close the public hearing and invite discussion from the commission. Or a motion.
One comment I have is that I know with some of the other alcohol permits that we've provided, such as Writers Club, we've put in a condition that there is they come back for a review after 6 months after they've been open. I think that would be kind of a good standard thing to apply to this as well, just so we see when it's actually happening in the community, so we see what's going on and if there's any community reaction, just as kind of a final check. So I would be happy with that.
Remind me, Jim, because I do remember us having those conditions, but just in follow-up to our discussion earlier during our study session about conditions of approval, is the mechanism for that follow-up staff following up and seeing if there are complaints from the community, or what is the follow-up mechanism?
I thought, if I recall, it's been a couple of years now since we did Writers, but I believe it was an actual agendized item for the Planning Commission to take a look, and staff would Jim, I want to make sure I get this, I'm not mistaken.
Well, the difference there was it was a hard alcohol permit. I don't know, is this hard alcohol?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We had I think a 6-month tickler after they started the service, which I don't think have actually ever implemented at this point. But that's what, it was a 6-month, basically a report back to the commission of how things were going.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that I'm looking for, in case there is some issue and that has to be addressed, something like that.
Okay, all right, so just when it comes time, let's just make sure that we have a clear condition of approval with a clearly stated goal and intent.
Okay.
All right, is that it for your comments?
That's it for me.
Okay, Wayne?
I would like to propose a change in hours as per the applicant from 11 o'clock to 11 o'clock to 10 p.m.
Is there,
for service of the alcohol.
I understand the intent, but what about a mimosa? Well, I guess mimosas for
Bloody
Sunday
Mary.
brunch and Bloody Mary might occur a little earlier than 11. So I think I'd bring that maybe down to 10.
From 10 to 10. He did say 11, so.
I realize that, but I'm being generous here, and I don't think it would cause a problem. That would be my thought on it.
Okay.
okay. Any other comments?
The only comment I had was that I suggested to Adam that we include a specific finding about the public convenience and necessity as well. So I think Adam may have some proposed language on that.
On the resolution, I would suggest that we add a new Section 6 and make what is now Section 6, Section 7, but have the new Section 6 say that, would it be that the Planning Commission finds that the use of, for the sale and consumption of a full range of alcoholic beverages does meet the public necessity?
Yes, public convenience and
Public
necessity.
convenience and necessity.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say convenience, but not necessity. I don't see how it's necessary, but it is convenient.
All right. And just my, I don't know that we've all weighed in on Wayne's suggestion. I'd probably be more comfortable with the 10 o'clock because I do think that that's a pretty common places where there's a full bar that people are having Bloody Marys on the weekend. So
And
I think 10
it's
o'clock.
known for a breakfast place, actually, so historically, so I think it would be appropriate.
So I don't know if, we have if the motion maker, it sounds like several of us think it should be adjusted from 8.
That's fine with me.
Okay, all right. And
So that's not
are you making a motion?
I'll
Jim?
I'll give the motion a try.
Okay.
If there's no other discussion. Then let me switch back here. I will move that we adopt resolution number PC 15-005, a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of San Clemente, California, approving conditional use permit 15-014, Poche Burger and Kitchen Full Alcohol to allow the sale of a full range of alcohol for indoor and outdoor on-site consumption at an existing restaurant located at 2727 Via Cascadita, Suite I, with the following additions. Condition, I believe it's condition 15, that there will be a review of the there will be a review of can't remember what it was for writers. Give me a good word.
What time limit do you want? 6 months?
6 months, sure.
Okay, 6 months after the commencement of full range of alcohol, the planning staff shall report back to the Planning Commission in regard to the operations of the facility and if there have been any code enforcement issues as a result of the service.
And the addition of condition 16, that alcohol may be served from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., and the addition of the new Section 6, the current Section 6 becoming Section 7. The new Section 6 reads, "The Planning Commission finds that the sale and consumption of a full range of alcohol meets the public convenience and necessity."
You're including the word necessity in there?
We have to find for convenience and necessity, correct?
I'll second.
Also, I think that you were talking, or did you get this? I might have missed it, the change of the hours for the service
Yeah,
between 10
you
and
did.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
One more thing. It looks like Section 5
No.
needs to be also amended to change the time from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m.
Good catch. Good catch.
It would be the service of alcohol from 8 to 10.
Excuse me, service of alcohol.
Service of alcohol. I have a question for G. Why do we have to use the word necessity?
That's a specific finding that ABC requires the city to make due to the potential overconcentration within the census tract. So that's what they ask of us. Sometimes cities just do it. Sometimes cities do it sort of indirectly by just passing a conditional use permit, but I think it's a better practice to actually put in the finding into the resolution itself. So I would mirror the language that ABC requires.
Could you
It
please?
seems like the finding really is about whether there's an overconcentration or not.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if alcohol is ever a necessity. That's what I think everybody's having a problem with, right?
I completely understand. It's just that's the wording of the finding itself.
Adam, you said Marblehead Coastal, so all the restaurants in the new development commercial area will be coming and asking for that same finding that they're going to serve alcohol, correct?
Yes. And
So
there's
we're
a
gonna
lot of
see a lot of this.
There are a lot of areas of the city that are overconcentrated. The whole downtown is overconcentrated. You know, in that area, we're really kind of encouraging more of that kind of activity. In this area, the overconcentration is, you can't walk from one to another. You know, they're very spatially separated. One thing I did want to say, you had added a condition 16 for the hours, and then we talked about the. I don't know if somebody caught that. Condition number 3 actually states the hours, so it should. We shouldn't have another condition. We should just revise condition number 3 to be 10 a.m. to 10 p.m.
All right, then I'll withdraw the condition number 16 that was proposed and instead amend condition number 3 to read the operating. Well, those are the operating hours of the restaurant.
Yeah, that's different.
That's different from the hours of serving.
So just to add a provision, it says an additional sentence instead of an additional condition that says the service of a full range of alcohol will occur between the hours of 10 a.m. and 10 p.m.
We will add that to condition 3 as stated by Chief Flanner.
Second? You have something?
I think we have a second.
Seconded. I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, passes 6-0. Okay, that brings us to item 8B, which is tentative tract map 14-252, Del Reposo condo map. Sean Nicholas.
Yes. Good evening, Planning Commissioners. Sean Nicholas, Project Planner. This is for the Del Reposo condo map. It is for the condoization of a 7-unit apartment complex that is currently under construction, located there on Avenida Del Reposo. So, a bit of background. The project was originally approved by the Planning Commission on April 19th, 2011. It also did receive a coastal development permit waiver on May 30th of 2013. No conditions or requirements were placed on the project by Coastal Commission. It did receive its building permits on February 27th of 2014. It is consistent with Planning Commission's approval and meets applicable densities. And that's one of the main findings for a tentative tract map is still what they're proposing is well within the densities allowed per the municipal code and the general plan. Staff is continuing to conduct inspections in the field, similar to what we talked about a little bit earlier this evening, our quality assurance program, making sure that all of those details that components of the project as originally approved by Planning Commission are being implemented in the field correctly. And lastly, if the condoization is approved by Planning Commission this evening, it will have to also return to Coastal Commission for approval prior to the recordation of the final map. With that, staff does recommend approval of the tentative track map for the Del Reposo condo map, subject to the attached resolution and conditions of approval, and staff is available to address any of the questions the commissioners may have.
Are there any questions of staff? Okay, seeing none, would your applicant like to step forward?
Good evening. My name is Harold Alzadi. I just want to thank Jim Petches, the Planning Commission, and City Attorney for taking time to review this, and I look forward to following your recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? No. Okay. With that, I'll open the public hearing, and at this time, members of the public may step forward to address this issue. We have 2 cards before us. If there's anybody else who wishes to speak, please take a card from the back of the room and fill it out and give it to our recording secretary. I was going to ask Mr. Guidman to step forward, but seeing Mr. Gregory up so close to the microphone, well, why don't you?
I just have one question. I'd like to know who's going to be managing the property if it is apartments.
Is that something you can answer, Sean?
The purpose of the map this evening would convert them from apartments to individual ownership. So ultimately, the residents living there will own their individual units. That's the purpose. So there is not going to be a management company. It'll just be the individual owners owning the individual, their individual unit within the 7-unit complex.
I'm mistaken. I thought it was going to go from condos to apartments.
No, sir. The other way around.
The other way. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Gregory?
Evening, George Gregory, perpetual criminal from North Beach. I have a ladder on my truck. Anyways, I have a couple questions here. I've been trying to convert a piece of property for over 10 years with good garages, good parking, good privacy. You put this parking in front of this building, it's nothing more than a hotel. As much as I approve this project, and I hope it brings up my property values, I'd hate to see that there's no more room for any more condos. We have to have an apartment count. You're SOL, Mr. Gregory. I also like to know how this inside track works. This place is going to be converted to condos before it's even built. And I've been struggling for 10 years, a decade. Seems like a double standard in inside track. And capricious, I guess I would use the word of. I do have a good project. I've tried to get it on the books several times. I keep running into roadblocks and different little hurdles and things to jump over. I'm hoping the city staff and the city hall has changed a little bit. Maybe possibly with some of the recent retirements and stuff like that, that we don't treat some of the general citizenry like criminals because they have ladders on their trucks or have an apartment building that they want to convert to condominiums. 2-car private garages are unheard of in San Clemente. We just have these general areas to park. We have no privacy. We have no place to store our surfboards, our bicycles, our motorcycles, things like that. I can bring that. I can bring that to my new owners. But I keep running into roadblocks. I hope that I will get some help. We seem to have a business liaison. That business doesn't go to the business liaison. It only goes to certain business districts and things like that. It doesn't go to the builder, the developer, the George Gregory's. Okay? And these are huge concerns. And then what we're doing, what are we doing? We're developing a community where we don't allow tradesmen. We don't like them. We only want realtors and lawyers and architects. What about window washers and plumbers and painters? Those people make money too, and they need to live in a place too. So they need a garage to store their ladders and things like that also. So I really want you guys to think about the general way you're going about these condo developments, these mixed-use buildings. Look at the Coastline building. You ever been down in their subterranean parking? It's hideous. I'd hate to live like that. It's like going to a mall to go home. Now, I know some people really want to go shopping in this town, but it's not a 24/7 endeavor. Life is. rest is, privacy is. So I would really hate to see that all of a sudden we've have enough of a condo count and we can't allow any more conversions. I would hate to see myself get put behind the 8 ball, because I do endorse Harold's endeavor. But I think it's cheap and common, where I have something that's much better. And I'm hoping I can get some help, Mr. Petches. I hope there's a change. Thank you.
Mr. Gregory, just before you sit down, just to be clear, we do frequently, not frequently, but we have several times over the last year looked at condo conversions for properties that were still under construction. So this is not unusual for us to do that. It's not a special privilege for this particular applicant.
I'm surprised to hear that. I don't follow it 24/7.
And perhaps staff could provide some clarity on this, but it's unlikely that there would be a situation where we would say that there were too many condos being converted in your area that would impact you and your ability to do so.
Thank you for the reassurance.
And also, as far as the business liaison, that is to deal with businesses that are located in the area. So that's a different sort of program.
And I realize that, and I realize what they're doing and stuff like that. But my problem is I seem to just keep running into obstructions. Okay, this last thing was, and we're still in a kind of a gray area. You can't have more than 3 units underneath one roof.
Well,
you have to bring everything.
And as you know, we can't really comment on your specific project here tonight, but I did just want to correct for the record those specific issues. So,
well, this does have a lot to do with this project, because they're saying that I can't have more than 3 units underneath a common roof without super duper ADA improvements like elevators and stuff like that. Here we have 7 units. I don't know if you got an elevator or not, Harold. You know, I assume you do, but it probably goes in the courtyard, and it's not individually per unit. They're multi-story units. So we appreciate all the information, George. If you might want to continue to follow up with staff about your project. I'm constantly on it. Whenever I get off my ladder and I can work on it, yes, I have to juggle like everybody else.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else who wishes to speak to this issue? Okay, seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing and invite discussion or a motion from the commissioners.
Seeing no discussion, I'll make a motion to approve a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of San Clemente, California, approving tentative tract map 14252 Del Reposo condo map. A request to approve a condo map for a 7-unit project under construction located at the residential medium density zone at 117 Avenida Del Reposo.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, passes 6-0. That brings us to item 8C, amendment to conditional use permit, CUP 80-11, Pico U-Haul left turn lane. Mr. Nicholas?
Yes. Excuse me. Yes, good evening again, Planning Commissioner Sean Nicholas, Project Planner. This is the Pico U-Haul left turn lane request amendment to the CUP 80-11. Some background information for everyone to catch everyone up. Originally, the U-Haul site was approved back in March of 1980. The traffic engineers at that time had only one recommendation, and that would be there would be no median cuts along the major arterial there on Pico to allow for a left turn lane into the site. This became the conditional approval, which is the topic this evening. U-Haul has operated since the early 1980s without this median cut. They have requested the removal originally. This item came before the Planning Commission back in November of 2013. It was the staff's recommendation was the same as it is this evening, and it was ultimately denied by the Planning Commission 6-1. The applicant has subsequently appealed the decision, but then withdrew that application. In choosing to provide some additional information as well as develop the 2 alternatives that are before you this evening. Since more than a year has passed since that denial, they have again requested the removal of the conditional approval now in its current form. Make sure I wasn't going to hit the wrong button there on the mouse. So just to familiarize, here we have Avenida Pico, El Camino Real. Here is our project site of the U-Haul facility. As I mentioned, the representatives of U-Haul have developed two alternatives this evening. Alternative one, which I would say is the primary alternative, the desire of U-Haul, provides both the left turn in from Pico as well as the left turn out. Both iterations, both alternatives include, as you can see, a 100-foot storage length along Avenida Pico and what would have been Coastal Commission approved landscaping that is actually going to start seeing installation within the next month by the residential developers of Marblehead Coastal. So it's going to ultimately result in at least the removal of 1,800 square feet of landscaping. Alternative two, very similarly, same design. As you can see, though, only has the right turnout, and it has a little bit of a separation here that prohibits the left turn out of the facility. So again, the issue went. Staff took the issue to traffic engineering, and again, that their stance is they want to limit the amount of unprotected turning movements and conflict points, especially on the major arterials. So after all this time, the engineering divisions, in traffic engineering divisions, position is still the same, that they do not want to see a median cut on a major arterial, and this is across the city, that this is their position. Again, we reviewed the requirements. Now, looking instead of previously at the last city general plan, we're looking at the Centennial General Plan, and staff has still found that it is inconsistent with the Centennial General Plan, mainly because of issues associated with the view corridor, the scenic highway. In your staff report, we provided 9 different general plan policies and goals in which staff felt that the median cut was inconsistent with those goals and policies. I already mentioned the 1,800 square foot removal of the Coastal Commission approved landscaping, as well as putting trucks in that landscape, what would have been a landscaped area. Attachment 5 of your staff report this evening was a visual simulation, and I have those images also available in my PowerPoint if necessary. I'm sure that the applicant who is here and will probably want to talk on this issue, I know after me, they have prepared some visual analysis which staff has reviewed. Staff has reviewed these findings and determined, yes, at the very top of the view shed as you're starting to come down the hill, probably the impact to the view shed will not be a huge impact, but as you move down to the middle and lower portions of the view shed, you will have larger impacts. I know that the applicants feel that their position is that it's going to be the same as the trucks. There's going to be no impact difference than the trucks driving through. Well, the way staff looks at it is when you create that turning radius and you're sitting there moving, a truck will continue to move through the view corridor. Now, when you create that place for them to sit and stop to turn left, you're going to have them sit and be stationary and take up more of the view for a longer period of time. So, again, we're going to have trucks in that middle landscape area rather than, the Coastal Commission approved landscaping. It's also important to note, I just want to note that you did receive a very thick package that was presented by the applicant in terms of signatures. Actually, they had talked about this signature book. Back in that November 2013 meeting, he had actually brought in what was the hard copies, the original versions, and they, as you can see from the dates, have continued to collect some signatures regarding this issue, so they had asked that we provide that to you this evening, and that was provided as the last attachment in your staff report. So overall, based on all of the components, based on the fact that traffic engineering still is not supportive of opening that median for the reasons I stated, and additionally associated with the general plan inconsistencies, staff still recommends denial and maintaining the condition of approval as it's written, preventing median cuts, resulting in the denial of the amendment to CUP 80-11, the Pico U-Haul left turn lane, subject to the attached resolution. That concludes my presentation. Staff is prepared to address any of the Planning Commissioner's questions this evening.
Thank you, Sean. Jim, you had a question?
Yeah, a question and a disclosure as well. The question is since this has been approved by the Coastal Commission, the landscaping and the scenic view corridor, if we now change that, remove the landscaping and put in a median cut, we're going to have to go back to Coastal to get approval for that. Is that true?
The applicant would, if the Planning Commission were to decide tonight that they wanted to support some kind of left turn lane feature in, first off, we would have to continue this agenda because there would have to be a new resolution prepared. And as a component of that, there would be a lot of components associated with landscaping, and they would definitely have to go back prior to installation or any modifications, any types of engineering permits for encroachments to do the work. They would have to go receive approval from the Coastal Commission for that, yes.
Okay, good, thank you. And I do need to disclose that I was at the NBCA Traffic and Safety Committee last week, as was the applicant, and this issue briefly came up and was discussed.
Thank you. Other questions of staff?
Well, I just have something to add. When Sean is finished with this presentation, I have a map to share and go over.
And I have that whenever you...
I did see something on page 3 of the attachment of the project analysis here, where it actually says 3,555 square feet of landscape median is going to be removed, and then it will be replaced with non-permeable hardscape, which would be the asphalt. So I heard you say 1,800 square feet a little bit earlier, and that would be the attachment for November 20th. Maybe there was a modification since then.
That is correct. The original version that was reviewed by Planning Commission back in November of 2013 was a much actual larger. If you look at, let me go back to that here. If you go look at the design of the, this is fine, how they only have the 100-foot storage here, Commissioner Barnes. Originally, the design that they came in with back in for 2013 actually had this cut, the storage go all the way back to approximately here. So it was a substantial distance further. So that's why it got reduced from the 35 back down to the 1,800 based on the numbers that they've provided us here. That's the basis.
Thank you. My understanding is that, yes, it says there is a coastal development permit that's been approved. If there's a modification now, then you'd have to have an amendment to the coastal development permit, which would be another step besides the ones that we would be taking tonight, should the commissioners approve this request.
Thank you. Any other questions? Sean, I had two questions. So with the shorter left turn lane, I realize that engineering is not supportive of this application, but did they have specific concerns that with a shorter lane like that there would be stacking that would go out into the regular lane?
Their concerns are completely just around the issue of unprotected left turn lanes, no matter what the stacking is, and having that, having additional conflict points on a major arterial. That is 100% completely the basis of their concerns.
So there's the unprotected left turn lane, and then it could also be the issue of the stacking.
Could potentially, yes. That has not. I will tell you, because of the fundamental issue with not opening up the median in terms of the design components and characters of this. Again, if the Planning Commission should decide tonight that they would like to support a left turn lane, one of the components we'd have to do in continuing is there would need to be some analysis, a technical analysis that would ultimately need to be done that may result in some modification, maybe resulting of needing some additional stacking, which may have more landscape impacts, as well as any other components that would need to be done, for that approval. But there's not been a detailed analysis because, again, that fundamental just not creating any kind of median cut.
Okay, and staff's comments regarding the scenic corridor and all the general plan policies related to that aside, the safety issue that engineering has weighed in on is one that they would have with a major arterial in other locations, not just this location. Is that correct?
We talked about actually a few situations even on El Camino Real earlier today. Again, another major arterial and projects that had the exact same conditions of approval associated with ingress, egress, with left turn in, left turn outs, in which there are design components that prohibited that. Again, treating everyone the same, consistent on that position.
Okay, thank you. Vonnie?
Well, Sean, this isn't a detailed analysis, but there are also 3 single unprotected turning points, left turning points on Pico I'm very familiar with, and many of us are too as well. And that would include the McDonald's, Caro's, the mobile gas station, the unprotected turn, and these are single unprotected turning points. And it's always a challenge to try and get across the traffic in one piece and not get hit broadside. The difference that appears to be with this location is that there's not one but two unprotected turning points. One is a left turn coming out of the U-Haul going west down Pico, and another one would be turning left from Pico going west and turning into the U-Haul. Both of these could be occurring at the same time on a curve with a substantial grade where as it slopes down towards the ocean. And you have a little bit of trouble seeing clearly on the curves. And is there anything that you got from the traffic engineering comparing the safety issues with a double unprotected turning point area as compared to the single ones on Pico?
Again, I can tell you is that the traffic engineer's concerns are any creating new left-hand turn lane median cuts associated with, ingress, egress, left turns in or out. They do not support any kind of median cuts. I can't speak to the situation to how those other ones got approved or how they were installed that you mentioned, but what I can tell you is that it has been their position for some time, is what I was told and verified again today with the city engineer, that it is not something that the city supports associated with ingress, egress, unprotected, and creating additional conflict points on major arterials. And again, that's not just this project, and it's associated with many other recent developments as well. And throughout the history of the community for the last 20-plus years.
Okay. Thank you.
I think, Michael, you were next, and then Wayne.
Yeah. Sean, just a question. Traffic that is moving south, I guess westbound on Pico as it hits PCH, is there an allowed U-turn at that intersection?
That is a great question. Off the top of my head,
no,
I do not know.
I don't remember.
No, there's no.
I just don't remember.
Okay, thanks.
Wayne?
Thank you, commissioners.
Since this would be a change to the conditional use permit, and a conditional use permit, I understand, runs with the land, in the future, if this site became another use, such as a restaurant or a hotel or something of that nature, then if the Planning Commission approved this, that left turn lane would be a run with the land and approved for additional different uses.
It runs with the land, but I believe the key thing is that you said is the use. This is approved for the U-Haul storage use, and I think that your comment was maybe getting other uses like a hotel or some other facility. I would say that associated with that, with any new development that would come through, we would evaluate circulation associated with the public streets and any types of studies that would come in. And if this was approved, let's say for this situation, I think any kind of change of use that would require discretionary review, that would have to be evaluated at that time and would be evaluated in that process. I think is the best answer I can give you, sir.
All right, thank you.
And Sean, I had a question for you earlier today that, on the one hand, seems unrelated to what we're reviewing today, but because there's so much concern about this being a scenic view corridor, and there was a lot of discussion of landscaping in our staff report and in the general plan policies for the area. I did notice that in the original action of the zoning administrator, which was our attachment 3, that one of the conditions of approval, condition E, stated that 27 24-inch box trees were to be placed within the planting area on the property. And I only saw 2 trees on the property, unless they're on the back slope, and if that is included as part of the area. And I was concerned about that because I'm assuming that part of the purpose of that planting was to screen the area along that scenic corridor. Do you know anything about the history of this and where that puts us today?
All I can tell you is that the site is approved and has been existing. I don't know, obviously, clearly if they were required along Pico, they are not there. I can tell you associated with their facade enhancements that we did a few years back, there was some additional landscaping that was required along Pico, and that some of that needs to even still be addressed and dealt with, and we're going to be reaching out to the applicant, as I had expressed to you, to kind of address that issue. So I would say that that's all landscaping in general is something that we're going to be looking at, probably dealing with U-Haul regardless of this application in the near future, yes.
Okay, so if this application is denied tonight, this is something that you could pursue through code compliance or through your discussions with the applicant regarding landscaping in general.
Regardless, yes.
Yeah. And if the application were approved and you were to come back with a resolution to that effect, we could at that time consider a condition of approval that would address this issue.
I think staff would recommend it.
Okay, thank you. Michael?
Yeah, another question occurred to me. Was there any time on Pico where this planter didn't exist and one could make these different left-hand turns when U-Haul was there?
For a very short period of time, I want to say it was about 5 to 6 years ago, right before the big hit and Lehman went bankrupt, SunCal had begun a number of roadwork improvements on Pico. And Pico was pretty torn up, as I'm sure you all remember, there for a number of years. And during that time, the median was gone. And for that short period of time, the way it was striped, it did allow in, for that time, left turns at that time. But again, it was for a very short period of time, and then the new median was placed, and again, the original condition would take place. And again, that was just because the median was totally removed and completely along Pico.
Thanks.
Okay, are there any other questions of staff, or shall we ask the applicant to step forward?
I have this one, not that one, unfortunately, but they have that in their packet.
Okay. Good evening, Commission and Chair. My name is Jim Lorimer. I'm representing the owner of the property, and with me is Kurt. He's the local representative who runs the facility and the consultant who prepared the documents that you see before you from R.A. Smith National. I think Sean covered a lot of the history of the project, but originally, yes, back in 1980, the CUP denied or prevented cuts into the median. 35 years later, though, things have changed, the business has changed, volume of customers have changed. So that's why we're here today to request a amendment to the CUP. Since the last commission meeting we had back in November 2013, we have met with Sean a few times, and he conveyed some of the traffic engineers' feelings on this. We've reviewed sight lines, we've amended the exhibits, and these amended exhibits you see before you are resubmitted for your consideration. And it shows how our trucks actually don't block the views of the ocean, and how currently it's adversely, the path of the trucks are adversely affecting the community. This is not necessarily a request for U-Haul or something that benefits U-Haul. It's mainly in response to our customers and the residents who have registered complaints with us via our online surveys, which Kurt has taken into consideration. And once that happened, we decided to put this book that we had submitted as an exhibit. We wanted to get a general feeling of what's going on here. So there's been a lot of complaints from residents, citizens of San Clemente, customers of ours. And so we're really listening to the community, and we found that this is more or less a public need and a public convenience to everyone around us. Since the complaints, these books carry about 2,000 signatures, and they're going. So this time, Planning Commission, we have submitted those as an exhibit. As the last time we did not. But to better understand what's going on today, the red dots on there are the path of the trucks that were taken. One scenario is that they pass the U-Haul facility, they stop at the intersection of El Camino Real and Avenida Pico, sit there and do a U-turn. U-turn at that point is illegal and somewhat harder for the large trucks that we have because they have turning radius of 35.5 feet. The second scenario is a little more complicated. They, again, pass the U-Haul, sit at the intersection for 1-2 minutes, make a left-hand turn on El Camino Real, right onto Boca de la Playa, navigate a roundabout, turn right back onto Avenida Pico, where they started from, past Ellie's Table, sit at the intersection again, and then finally work their way up to U-Haul. So it's about a, 6-8 minute ordeal where they could just make a left-hand turn into the facility where they want to go. And if they happen to, there's 2 left turns at Avenida Pico that go onto El Camino Real. If they happen to be on the right one, they can turn into North Beach, but if they're on the left one, they can't get into that North Beach turn on Avenida or the Boca de la Playa. So a lot of them end up going through our neighbor with the car wash, and with the larger trucks, it's pretty hard to navigate through that area, and then they come back up on Avenida Pico back to our facility. So for U-Haul, this would be great because we won't have to repair so many damaged trucks, and we won't have to continually repair our neighbors at our expense, their canopies and their building, which we've had customers run into numerous times. But being a good neighbor, we take care of that expense. So then there's also some concern with the citizens regarding the safety and the enjoyment of property in the North Beach recreation area. Pedestrians, bicyclists, skateboarders, there's a lot more there in North Beach than there is in front of the U-Haul. So in this North Beach recreation area, it's a destination spot for tourists, residents alike to enjoy. And if there's events such as the weddings and anything else going on at the casino, it makes it a little more difficult, and in fact the safety factor kind of arises. So and the general plan, it does state for the North Beach area to implement a pedestrian-oriented streetscape. So with that in mind, there is a plan on building some bulb outs or extending sidewalks out into the street, which is great. I think it's great. It calms down the traffic, slows it down, creates a pedestrian atmosphere. They can move out some landscape, and just generally just calms down the traffic, which is great. But then again, if people are driving a U-Haul truck there, it's really hard to make a turn in those 35.5-foot turning radius trucks. And in addition, Orange County Transportation Authority recognized that roundabout behind the theater and the intersection at El Camino Real and Avenida Pico should be looked at for improvements for pedestrians. So in the North Beach area, ongoing efforts to improve that, to retain that atmosphere for future use are great, and there's some real progress being made. It's very exciting, and I think that if customers returning a large U-Haul truck to U-Haul have to drive through that, it's kind of, in our opinion, taking a step backwards. So we would like to keep those trucks out of that area for safety and for the people that live along the Avenida Pico, the condos and the residents. Just so they can enjoy their views and enjoy their property. So the left turn lane that we are proposing, we would be proposing taking some of that median out. Instead of putting asphalt in its place, we can use the decorative pavers such as that's being used at Avenida Pico and El Camino Real intersection. And then we'll put in landscape, pleasant landscape, we'll keep it full and watered. So in our opinion, the trucks are either stacking at the El Camino Real and Avenida Pico intersection, or they're stacking in front of the U-Haul. Either way, U-Haul, they're going to be there for a shorter period of time. And there has been occasions in the summer, our busy seasons of summer, and so is North Beach area, I've seen that traffic backed up to our property from that intersection. So in either case, the U-Haul trucks, as in our exhibit shows, they do not block views of the ocean, and but if they're driving through North Beach, the people in North Beach, they're kind of blocking the views there. So that's our opinion at that point. So our stance is we wish to alleviate some of this congestion in North Beach, and we would also like to help our customers, make things easier for them to get in and out of our property. I do realize turning left out is going to be a little problematic, so at the very least we would really like to get the left turn lane in. And with that, I'd like to hand over to Sam, who might, I don't know if you have anything you want to say about your exhibits.
Yeah, and I just ask you to be aware of the fact that I think we're approaching 10 minutes, so if you could keep your remarks somewhat brief for the rest of the team, that would be appreciated.
Okay. My name is Sam Jacoby. I'm their civil engineer and consultant. Our office is in Irvine. I live in Irvine. I'm down in the Dana Point, San Clemente area at least once a week looking at my other projects that I have going on in the area. We had prepared a memo given to staff in 2013 addressing the stop and sight distances that I believe Miss Barnes had raised. The left-in movement that the client, that the owner is requesting, the intersection site distance requirements that Caltrans requires, and I believe the city of San Clemente would require, are met on the inbound lane, and the stopping site distance from the conflicted northbound traffic on Avenida del Pico from that left-bound in movement are met. So we think, I believe that the left turn in is a happy median between the public convenience and the owner's requests.
Okay, Bart, do you have a question?
Yeah, I had a question. Did you meet with the traffic engineer of the city to discuss this solution?
My coworkers did.
And what was the result of that?
They had listed additional requirements as far as what they were looking for the traffic study, for the intersection site design requirements, and for the total site or the left turn pocket requirements. That is, I believe, when it shrunk down from the larger requirement per Caltrans to the shorter turn bay distance that you see in front of you today.
So has that been completed, that work?
We had designed an initial concept that U-Haul is preparing, that U-Haul is using for their exhibits to the city today. But we haven't completed the design plans. We haven't made a formal submittal for review and approval to the traffic engineers.
It seems like we're a little premature if we don't have a final design to review and examine. Was the access in and out of the recreational commercial area on the opposite side of Pico considered, the traffic coming out of there? It's going to be probably a restaurant and a park, I'm assuming.
We had performed a level of service analysis on the intersection, and with the left turn in movement, there was no degradation in level of service to the through traffic as measured by delay time moving through the intersection and potential delays. But I can't say for certain what properties we looked at and what potential projects we looked at. Well, this is
directly across from U-Haul. Mm-hmm. Directly across Pico, there's another access on to Pico.
Yes.
and there could be a considerable amount of traffic coming out of that at certain business hours when something's built there. And that's going to certainly affect people coming down Pico, going around trucks that are going into that left turn lane, if they're looking to not slow down and go into that, and it would create conflict. And I think all those things need to be addressed before I could support a solution like this. So do you have any response of what higher level studies need to be done to justify this?
I think Sean wants to address this, because I believe since we're looking, since staff has recommended denial, our resolution is for denial.
Yeah,
and you would be addressing this in more detail if we asked you to come forward with a resolution of approval?
What I can tell you, I think the best answer is that I don't think the engineer here might be able to tell you some of the types of typical studies. I can't tell you what the type of studies is that our engineering division would want to see should this be something that the Planning Commission thinks they would like to see happen on that site. Because, again, staff's position, including engineering, was always that we were not going to support it despite, the technical components. We were helping the applicant to allow them to get to a decision point faster, and so that's why the full analysis associated with what they proposed has not been completed to allow them to get to this point. And if it was something ultimately that Planning Commission did want to support, we would, yes, have to go back through and deal with some of those technical components, and we look at how that would occur and when that would occur. But that would occur moving forward should it be this be a solution that even the Planning Commission wanted to entertain.
I was just looking more for if it was to be entertained, were the life safety issues already resolved, and apparently they aren't. That's what I wanted to hear.
Jim?
In terms of those components, that we would not be able to say that in terms of the city's position, that has not been fully vetted or reviewed, as I said, because of wanting to get them to a decision point.
I just want to point out on the left turn in movement, we have this triangle which limits the outbound traffic, and that has been designed to limit traffic outbound from the adjacent property into that left turn pocket. So correct, and from making a leftbound movement out of that adjacent property.
So, yeah, a couple questions. Kind of to extend Bart's inquiry, I assume then that you haven't done, your LOS analysis doesn't include the opening of Vista Hermosa or the opening of the retail outlets? Is that true?
I would have to confirm that. I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay.
But we did do an LOS study. I do know that.
Okay. And has the owner or the operator, have you provided any maps or directions of alternate routes to return to the U-Haul to your customers as they rent the trucks?
I'll let Kurt address this also, but I do know that we may verbally tell them, but our insurance underwriter won't let us tell people where to go in case something did happen in North Beach. Then they're thinking that we become liable for that. But Kurt can tell you what we do on a daily basis.
Good evening. Kurt Rogers, the general manager. And yes, over the phone, we'll ask the customer to come through the Los Molinos area if they're not familiar with returning, so to keep them out of the North Beach area, to keep the customers in the trucks specifically. So we do over the phone. We don't have, it's not set up online, but over the phone we do.
Thanks.
Okay. Do you have another question?
Yes, I'd like to speak to the first gentleman, please. What is your name, sir? Again? Yes.
Jim Lorimer, Lorimer.
Jim
Lorimer.
Lorimer. And what is your position there?
I'm with the owner. I'm with the owner, representing the owner of the property.
Oh, the owner. And who owns the property?
This is owned by Americo Real Estate, and U-Haul is a tenant of ours.
Okay. Sean, could you please put the slide back on of the map that he was using with all of the dots on there? Okay. Okay, Mr. Lorimer, You mentioned that you had a lot of complaints there, and so I wanted to first say, were you aware that when you go onto Google and you look up U-Haul, the only instructions that are given to get there are to take Pico and make a U-turn? And it's illegal to make a U-turn down at the El Camino Real and Pico. And I was thinking perhaps if the general manager, and there may be some changes in the website there so that it was clear to your customers that they might not be so upset when they followed the instructions that are on Google to come. That would be the first thing.
We can talk to Google about that.
And
yeah, and at one time that doing a U-turn there was legal.
It hasn't been legal for some time.
Right.
And this map I see was created June 9th, 2014. So there's been some time to go over it and correct the mistakes on it. For example, Boca de la Playa is not as labeled there. That's Avenida Estacion. For one thing, if instructions are being given to take the different routes, it would probably be helpful to put arrows on directionals. There don't seem to be any here. There's no stoplights. There's no left turn signs of any of the routes. I drove these routes myself and timed them. I'm familiar with the area because I live here. But you have some dots going up what is actually Boca de la Playa. There's actually no left turn on that. It's not allowed. And I see you have left turns going from Boca de la Playa onto El Camino Real. Boca de la Playa is the southernmost vertical series of dots that you have on the west side of El Camino Real. And so I can see where there's some problems with this because there's no directionals on there.
This was never intended to be a directional map. We're just kind of mapping what we see our customers doing.
And so, anyways, with that, if there are no other questions, I do have another map for discussion.
Actually, that would be during discussion.
Yes, during discussion.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
all right. Wayne, you have a question of the applicant?
I have some general questions. Number one, do you give a map to your customers and how to return trucks, or at all? You don't give a map to people? No, we do not. Okay. A couple of just general questions. This facility has been there since 1980. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you have a long-term lease right now, is that correct?
Correct.
And it runs till when? Do you know? Pardon me?
Indefinitely. Yeah, it just renews every 10 years.
It renews every 10 years. Okay. All right. Where do most of your customers come from? Do they come from San Clemente or Dana Point?
I would say the majority come from San Clemente, although we do have some in Dana Point. We do have a new facility in San Juan Capistrano, and they're going to that store now.
Oh, they are. Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you very much. And at this point, we'll open the public hearing, and we'll invite Ray Hardy, or Harji? I'm sorry, Harji? All right, and then after Mr. Harji, Don Slater, please.
Okay, hi, my name's Ray Harju, and I can tell you where a good share of those U-Haul trucks go. I live right at the end of Pico on Boca de la Playa. And quite often we see them coming down, making a U-turn right in front of our house, going the other way. That intersection has become a zoo over the last few years with the addition of the coastal trail starting, maybe 8 years ago. And Ellie's has significantly changed the whole demeanor of the place. In addition to that, we've got probably 1,000 bike riders come there on the weekends. It's the major thoroughfare for all the road bike riders. And it presents a safety hazard. We've had one death right in front of our house. Right down the street, there was another, at least one collision that I know of. I just happened to talk to the cop a couple of days ago. That's the only reason I know about that one. but you see lots of pedestrians, lots of families, lots of strollers crossing the intersection at all kinds of different angles. I'd like to thank the city for, in North Beach, they repainted a whole bunch of the intersections, and they've made them, I think, significantly safer. It's based on at least what you can do with paint. And I want to thank the city again for their future plan of putting the bulb outs there at Boca de la Playa and Pico, and I think also they're working up trying to put one at Decheca. Those are going to have a significant impact. But I'd like to speak in favor of one more change, and that's the U-Haul left-hand turn lane. What I'd like you to do is please keep the U-Hauls out of historic North Beach. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And Mr. Slater? And after that, Mr. Gregory?
Hi. Tonight I come before you representing Live North Beach. It's a new group of people that are working hard to create a better lifestyle in North Beach. I am the chairman of the Traffic, Parking, and Safety Committee, as I'd been the chairman for the last 2 years on the North Beach Community Association. During the time that there was just one lane in each direction, I traveled through that area, and of course that was a rough ride at that time. But they were able to make left-hand turns in. I don't remember being inconvenienced by that or having problems with that. I don't know, you can look up to see if there were any traffic accidents at that time, but it would be a good indication of how that traffic goes. That was a number of years, I believe, that was taking place. Forcing the large trucks and trailers into the North Beach residential area is creating congestion, creating driver frustration, and frustrated drivers don't make really good decisions. And we're trying to calm down the drivers with the bulb outs, with the change of lines, and other things to try to make it a safer area. There were 2 women hit this summer by cars in that area. So we really do need to do this. If we can remove this source of congestion, it will help make up for what's coming to our area, which is all the traffic from all the new venues opening up here in a year or so, the mall and everything else. I think there's going to be a lot of issues coming with the bowl area, the baseball bowl area, and traffic and parking issues, because we're going to be heavily affected by all of the development. The residents of the baseball bowl area are very, very concerned about our lifestyle, our ability to park, our ability to move without being harmed. I suggest a alternative concept, if necessary. Use the left-hand turn only. I don't see a big reason for the left-hand out, or that was the full extent. I ask you to please keep in mind the residents of North Beach at all times in this. We really do need help. I've almost been run over a number of times, and we need to get the driving conditions and walking conditions under control, and there's a lot of very serious issues that need to be taken care of. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Slater. Mr. Gregory?
Hello, George Gregory, North Beach. Thanks for receiving me again. There's really nothing more scary or more concerning than to see the U-Haul truck on the street with you while you're walking around or something like that, especially if it's towing a vehicle. They're looking at their GPS, their phone, they're lost, they're having a difficult time. Please allow these people to build that left-hand turn lane. But I would request that the left-hand out of the U-Haul be not allowed. Make them go around. Because I could see the traffic snarl there. I cannot see building bulb outs at North Beach before that left-hand turn lane into the U-Haul is built. You're really going to have a problem then. They're just going to have to run over the bulb outs. There's no way they'll be able to negotiate that large truck, especially if they're towing a vehicle behind it. Also, Wayne, you're absolutely right. If that site was ever to be redeveloped, it would have to have a left-hand turn lane. So why not now? Again, the bulb outs would be silly to build before we get that left-hand turn lane into the U-Haul. If you notice that too, the city yard has got a light right there too. It's just created more congestion than you can believe on a place that's actually kind of vacant right now. We have 2 city yard signals for 1 city yard. We need a little traffic relief there. We need something to discuss or something like that. And possibly another thing that may or may not help is maybe a little wayfinding sign, U-Haul, an arrow, something like that. We do it for downtown. We do it for the beach. We do it for Amtrak. We do it for Metrolink. We do it for so many other uses. And that U-Haul is very difficult. People are looking at the ocean. They're lost. They don't know how to get there. And they get stuck down to North Beach, and they're really going to be in trouble with the bulb outs and all this kind of stuff, and the Metrolink and all the activity going on down there. You should accommodate these people in their business, and that also gives us a little more ease of mind. We won't have to be so concerned when we see the U-Haul truck coming in, because we won't see as many as least. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gregory. All right, is there anyone else who wishes to speak to this matter? Seeing no one coming forward, I'll close the public hearing and invite discussion among the commissioners. Jim, I'm sorry. I just thought you could read my mind when I looked at you.
Well, I'll tell you, you guys have heard me talk about North Beach traffic for a couple of years now. I live right around the corner from the traffic circle, and I agree with everyone who spoke that, the safety is an issue down there. The trucks are, the rental trucks with inexperienced drivers is not something good for those narrow streets and pedestrians who are walking on the street instead of the sidewalk and things like that. So we do need to get them out of there. I have a concern, though. I'm just not sure if a left-hand turn there coming in and out of the U-Haul is a solution that's it's not going to be a solution that solves a problem down here and creates a problem up there. Our traffic engineers have some issues with it. I've learned to listen to them. I know in the last time the applicant came forward with this about 15 months ago, I asked about, maps and instructions to the customers. And they hadn't at that time been giving out instructions on how to get back around. I guess they're giving some phone instructions now. But it seems like a left-hand turn lane there involves a certain amount of risk or hazard that we're not sure about, and a lot of cost too. And I'm just wondering if there are perhaps a lot less expensive solutions that are worth trying before we try the most expensive solution or the most difficult solution. I'd really like to see the applicant maybe make some efforts along, to do that sort of thing, even, working some stuff out with, Google Maps. And I'd be happy to help you with that. I'm a software engineer, so I like doing that sort of thing. So if I can help out with that, I'm happy to. But I think that my feeling right now is that before we, put a curb cut in there, yet another curb cut in an arterial, which is something we've been trying not to do, that we maybe try those less expensive solutions that maybe, there's always the 80-20 rule, or perhaps 20% of the cost will get you 80% of the solution, and that may end up being enough. I also have a concern that traffic is going to be changing there this year in 2015. We're going to open up Vista Hermosa in a month or so. Before the end of the year, the first phase of the retail center is going to go in there. And, of course, we've got the residential in Marblehead. I think it's safe to say that traffic is going to increase there. To what extent and what the full impact is, it's hard to say. There's probably got to be a full-on study if we want to make that kind of prediction. So another thing to consider is do we want to see how Marblehead Coastal shakes out prior to doing something that is kind of this radical? I'm also concerned that U-Haul already has 2 curb cuts to come in there, and that's kind of unusual in our city for a business to have 2 curb cuts. A lot of less than 1 if they're part of a shopping center. So that we'd be adding something to the traffic complexity in that area to something that's already kind of complex, given that it's an arterial. So, I want to hear what everyone else has to say, too. I'm sure people have thought of things that I haven't thought of. But right now, I'm very much in favor of getting those trucks out of North Beach. It's pretty scary. It's getting scarier with the way North Beach has blossomed in the last couple of years. But, I'm just not sure this kind of, expensive, full-blown solution is something that we want to go to, right now, that we may want to look at some other things that are cheaper and might be effective as well.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. Bonnie, you had something you wanted to share.
Yes,
with
Sean, could you please bring up that slide? I think we have a compromise that would work and solve a lot of the solutions. And I wanted also to mention that Linda Sadeghi wrote into us all and also is concerned about the traffic at North Beach and the business areas around the casino and is it Adele's restaurant there where people sit outside. So this morning I put together a little map, and I'm kind of surprised that the applicants did not suggest this route at all. I have up here, I've driven all the routes that were on the applicant's traffic study, and Jim had some really good points that the traffic will be increasing as Vista Hermosa opens up, the residential goes in, the outlet mall goes up in there. And I wanted you to, we have two routes here. One is the green route, and if we, from the I-5, you come down to Los Molinos and Pico intersection, there's a traffic light there, and there's a star. That is where I made the measurements from for comparison. The applicant wishes to use the green route, which right now, without these businesses opened up and residential opened up, the lights, if you don't have to stop at the two red lights and sit through waiting through the mall, you can actually make it to the curb cut area at the U-Haul entrance in 45 seconds. But then you have to sit there and wait until it's safe on an unprotected turn point to turn left into the U-Haul. You have to wait. And maybe someone's turning out of the U-Haul and they want to turn left as well. So that's going to add on to the time that it will take. And it's also increasing the safety risk. I would rather the people that sign these petitions be safe than get hit by a car when they're turning on an incline and a curve in an unprotected turning area. The other alternate route is something that could certainly be on the website, on Google Maps. It could be posted. It's an easy route. I drove it a couple of times. The starting point back at the star. If you follow the arrows, there are no stoplights at all. You continuously go through, and until you come out at El Camino Real, there is a stoplight there, but there's a right-hand turn lane. Very safe. You don't have to wait through a whole light, and then you turn and stay on the right on El Camino Real till you get to the stoplight, and you make a very safe right again, and you continue up to the U-Haul and make a right into the U-Haul. It's safe. There's no intrusion into the historic elements at North Beach. The safety concerns of our guest speakers tonight have been met. The distance for the yellow route, the Los Molinos route, is 0.7 miles. And there is construction going on there right now. I drove it twice, and I was behind a OCTA bus, and cones were on 80% of this route on one side. So we were directed to use the other side of the road. And even without all that slow pace, it only took 2 minutes and 15 seconds to get to the U-Haul. The proposed route, there again, it has 2 stoplights that they will have to wait at as time progresses for traffic. And then they'll have to wait again in a left turn lane until it's safe to cross. As cars stack up expelling emissions into the environment, which is another concern. And anytime you have a developmental change like this, to satisfy the Coastal Act requirements, there has to be some public benefit for recreational or access to the beach areas in the coastal zone. This proposal does nothing for a business that's leased, maybe here today, maybe gone tomorrow. Our general plan and our municipal code request that we follow the guidelines to not spend money on transportation and cuts and reconstruction when there are choices that satisfy the needs for our community. And we have to think of our whole community as a whole, not the wishes of one business to make all these changes. And I really think this alternate route satisfies all the requirements necessary for a very safe and satisfying use of this this commercial roadway, Los Molinos, that will work very well for this. So I cannot support the applicant's request.
Thank you, Bonnie. Bart, then Wayne.
I'll be very brief. There is an alternate route. I would love to keep the trucks out of North Beach. However, without the city traffic engineer on board, I would not be comfortable trying to supersede his expertise when I don't have that expertise. So I would be hard-pressed and would not be able to support the left turn lane unless the traffic engineer was on board with it, which he is not at this time.
Thank you, Bart. Wayne?
I have two things here. Number one, I've been asked by Commissioner Brown to read a statement into the record, and then after that I'll give my views on it. This is from Commissioner Brown. Staff has presented a very well-formulated position for denial of this request. However, Commissioner Brown feels that almost 2,000 signatures cite one overriding fact finding, and that is safety. The turnout is not intrusive. It can be planned to look good in required areas. The staff comments and the visuals will result in the returning U-Haul trucks entering the view corridor twice, once down Pico and once on the return UP Pico to the U-Haul facility entrance. At present, at the intersection of Pico and El Camino, a U-turn is prohibited. This results in a non-professional drivers weaving around the Miramar Theater or some other neighborhood or through the car wash to return the truck. Checked with the car wash manager. Commissioner Brown did see the damage to the fueling station overhang, which I think we have some pictures of here, Jim. According to the manager, it has been hit 8 times since U-Haul last repaired it. It was worse before the repair. This conditional use permit is 30 years old, and Commissioner Brown agrees with our community neighbors. Safety is the key finding. Regards, Don Brown. Do we have the pictures there?
Yeah. I thought they're all the same.
It's a lot of clicks. There. Okay. Okay. And for my comments, I voted against this last time it came to us. I've had conversations with myself to either approve it or not to approve it. But what I have to say is that I think there's an alternative, the alternative that has been suggested here tonight by several commissioners, and that is to use the traffic area through the Los Molinos area. We want to keep the traffic out of North Beach. That's certainly a paramount concern to us because certainly in the future North Beach is going to be very, very crowded there. But I think there's alternatives, and I think that the U-Haul people can certainly make use of those alternatives through maps and through the Google sites and so forth. We have to look at the future traffic patterns. Once the outlet center opens and the residential opens up there, we're going to have a heck of a lot more traffic in that area. Right now, in the next 2 years, by the way, the Pico interchange is going to be a zoo. And I wouldn't recommend anyone going through the Pico intersection unless they have to, especially if they have a truck and they're trying to maneuver through all the construction there. So also I have to support the traffic engineers' recommendations, and so I will not be in favor of any alteration to the roadway at Pico.
Thank you, Wayne. Michael?
Now, my mom used to say 2 wrongs don't make a right, and I think that's what we have here. We have really a bad and a badder scheme that I don't think makes any more safe conditions other than the convenience of people that could otherwise drive the truck another way to get to the U-Haul. I've personally done that several times without driving through North Beach with all of those loops. And, people can come from lots of different directions in San Clemente and avoid all these problems. And my hat's off to Commissioner Barnes, who looked at what I would consider a very straightforward way to come from the Pico area to get to the U-Haul with consistent right turns, which are fairly easy to do in a truck, whereas anything else is going to be either into North Beach, which we know isn't good, but making a left-hand turn across Pico right there is double deadly because people are coming out of the car wash just a little bit below that, and I can't see that being safe at all. And why would we want to take one concern that we see in North Beach and then now raise another one with even a worse consideration? I think the reality here is giving the right directions to customers. It can be done. And I think the problem here is that U-Haul's not doing that. And I think U-Haul needs to do that. If they want to be better neighbors with the North Beach area, they'll work with their business to promote customer interaction that's more responsive to the community than driving around aimlessly in North Beach where those turning radiuses just don't work. So I cannot approve of alternate 1 or alternate 2, and I suggest that that U-Haul considers a starting point, a very good starting point for what Commissioner Barnes laid out. I think that was a really straightforward solution. I drove it myself. I figured that's a good way. There's also other ways of coming from PCH in the other direction, from the Estrella area. There's a lot of different ways to approach the U-Haul without having to do difficult, winding, tight turns in the middle of North Beach. That's not an excuse here. So I would vote to deny.
Thank you, Michael. I'm in agreement with the majority of my colleagues here tonight, and I was last time this came before us for basically all of the reasons that they have stated. There's certainly other alternatives that would make much less impact on the community, especially at this time when there are a lot of traffic impacts that will be felt along this corridor and that we can't necessarily anticipate adequately at this time. So I think perhaps education of their customers is probably the best approach to take. I notice Mr. Larimer, I believe it is, mentioned that the traffic pattern was adequate when the original CUP was approved in 1980, but that increased volumes at the store were making it less than adequate at this point. And I think perhaps, to me, that suggests that perhaps this is not the ideal use for this area if the applicant can't find a way to make it convenient for their patrons to continue to use the location. By the way, full disclosure, I am a frequent visitor to U-Haul. I am a regular customer of theirs, and I do very easily find an alternate route to the store. So, given that it sounds like we are in agreement, perhaps somebody would like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion this is with regard to resolution number PC 15007, a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of San Clemente denying amendment to conditional use permit 80-11 Pico U-Haul left turn lane, a request to create a left turn lane in and out of the U-Haul facility located at 310 East Avenida, Pico.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, that passes 6-0. I'm sorry. No, it does. The resolution is for denial. He's not voting. He just was sharing his opinion. Certainly. We're going to take a 5-minute break, coming back at 9:01. I was waiting for Dawn. I guess we might be here a while. Okay. All right. Oh, thank you very much. No, I think I'm fine. All right. I'll have some. Thank you. Thank you very much, Eileen. I bet your next thing snacks. Okay. All right. I call the meeting back to order, and the next item on our agenda is item 8D, conditional use permit. It's actually a double item, conditional use permit 14-389, architectural permit 14-478, Capistrano Shores Transformers and Fence. And the second related item is variance 14-474, conditional use permit 14-475, Capistrano Shores Wall and Landscaping. And Greg will be bringing this matter to us tonight. And just for purposes of disclosure, all of the commissioners have received several emails from the Lofton firm on behalf of the applicant. And I received at the dais a packet that included some additional information as well. Thank you.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. Amber Gregg, Project Planner. As you may remember, 2 weeks ago we had discussed this project initially, and at that time the Planning Commission reviewed the project but did not feel they can make the findings for the variance. At the meeting, the Planning Commission directed staff to draft a resolution for denial of the variance for the Planning Commission's consideration, and that is why we are back before you again tonight. After we prepared the staff report and you received it, as Chair Darden has mentioned, a letter from the Lofton firm came in yesterday evening at about 5:30. That letter was passed out to everyone in the form of an email. And in that letter, the applicant has requested that Phase 2 be tabled and referred to the Design Review Subcommittee. The letter also goes on to note that the applicant does not have intentions of moving forward with the transformers and the temporary fences, but they do not wish to withdraw the application. So that application is still active, if you saw that in your letter as well. And I just wanted to make sure that that was clear. We did verify that with the Lofton Group, that it was not their intention to withdraw the temporary fencing and the transformers, and that they did want to pursue with that application. However, for staff's recommendation, because the items rely on each other, staff recommends that the items not be separated and that the Planning Commission approve the project as stated in the staff report and consider the denial of the variance, or continue both items so that way Phase 2 can go to Design Review Subcommittee. The reason for this is the architectural permit that is noted with the temporary fencing relies upon the wall to be constructed. It's the only way that you can make the findings for that. If you separate these applications, you can no longer make the findings because there's not an approval with the conditional use permit to support the approval of the architectural permit. So that is why staff is recommending this approach. With that in mind, at the last meeting, the Planning Commission did unanimously agree to include a condition of approval that is not in your conditions tonight. At the dais, there is a sheet of paper that's provided for you for the conditions. The top one that we're going to go over happens to be one that was presented by Commissioner Barnes in regards to graffiti. Our municipal code addresses graffiti separately, which is why you typically do not see it in a condition of approval. But in this case, with concerns of the vast long white wall and the vines and everything else, we just wanted to put it in there to make the applicant aware that the city does have a graffiti program. The municipal code does require that graffiti be removed within 24 hours. This burden does lie on the applicant, however, or on the property owner, I should say. However, the city has its own graffiti abatement program where we have contracted with somebody who goes out and paints the graffiti over. This typically happens within 6 hours of being notified. It is corrected. And in this case, because there's a concern with OCTA, the contractor that we contract with actually has permission from OCTA to go onto their property and eliminate the graffiti. So that's an added bonus as well to make sure that that's handled. And then the second one is the condition that encourages the applicant and the Coastal Commission to work together for beach access. It's not a requirement. It's just a way for the Planning Commission to say that, yes, they would like to see beach access looked at if that was feasible. So that has also been included on the dais for your consideration. That concludes staff's presentation, and staff's available to answer any questions.
Are there any questions of Amber? Michael?
Sorry, I got some nuts. Do we need to put in the graffiti clause? Wouldn't it be their responsibility to do that in any event? And if they didn't, wouldn't the city come in and do it anyway, too? So is it really necessary for that to be a condition?
It's not necessary, no. Like a lot of our conditions are just repeats of what's in the municipal code. It's just to make them aware of it.
Okay. Any other questions of Amber? Okay. Thank you, Amber. If the applicant would like to come forward.
Hello, Eric Wills on behalf of Capstone Shores, Inc. As you stated, you received a letter from the Lofton firm. I don't think I have much more to add other than that, but I'm available for any questions if you have any questions.
Bart?
So are you in agreement of continuing both items?
No.
Just the one?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Wills.
All right, thank you.
Okay, at this point, we'll open the public hearing and invite anyone who wishes to speak to this matter to step forward. And seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing and invite discussion among the commissioners or a motion. Jim?
Yeah, a couple things. I did want to mention, going back to when we were in design review and we were discussing this issue, I guess based on the letter from the Lofton firm, the way I read it, there seemed to be an implication that, I don't know, the city was trying to pull a fast one or something, trying to get a bond passed or something. I think it's pretty clear to me from, after going through design review and the discussions we had in design review, that the reason these two applications are linked together is, in the way that they are, is because the applicant had a time consideration that they, in fact, expressed that time was of the essence. So we were sort of doing something that wasn't really, sort of doing part of the process backwards and that sort of thing for their benefit. And so I just wanted to make that clear, that, the work that Ms. Gregg has done and that the staff has done has been really, I think, an act of, good faith on the part of the city towards the applicant in terms of addressing the concerns and needs that they had in design review. And if we couldn't go far enough to satisfy them, that's okay. But it's that sort of thing happens. But certainly the intent was there, and a lot of work, I think, was put in to address the applicant's timeliness concerns. I didn't quite understand the Lofton letter. Well, I understood the Lofton letter differently. I'm glad you clarified that. I thought that they were saying no to everything, so it's good that you clarified that. I agree with staff that we can't approve one without the other. They are linked together for just the reasons that we talked about last time. I certainly can't make the findings for the temporary fence without the permanent one coming in. I think, given what we've gotten from the attorney, from the applicant's attorney, I think that either we've got to either deny both applications, or probably the best thing we could do for the applicant is to continue both applications and let this, see if we can have this move forward. The applicant, so to give the applicant the opportunity to move this forward with alacrity through design review with a permanent wall. That's what it looks like to me, but maybe Jim has got a different opinion.
I think that's exactly, bingo, what we were thinking too, but I just wanted to point out that they're not really necessarily both tied together. If you just go with the permanent approval, you don't need the temporary. Just wanted to make that point.
Yeah, but the permanent approval would still require the bond and that sort of thing, which the applicant has made it very clear that they don't want to engage in. We would be approving something that they've said they don't.
If you only approved the permanent, then you wouldn't need the bond.
Because you wouldn't have the fence.
It's a regular fence. I'm not suggesting that you do that.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
The options are that you do. Only the temporary one has to be tied to the permanent, not the other. That's fine.
Yeah, that's true.
right, thank you, Jim. Would anybody else like to speak to the issue? Is there a...
Yes, I'll say something. I agree with Jim about the meaning in this letter. It's my understanding from our discussion was that we were trying to work with the applicant to make this go through for them, because I didn't understand why things were going in reverse order in some seemingly ways without the design review myself. My understanding was there was a time limit that the applicant wished to pursue. And so that it's just not correct. And I also, from reading the letter, thought that the applicant wanted to remove from the calendar all of the applications.
That's why I asked the question.
Yes, and so it's very confusing for me. That's it.
Okay. Bart?
Ajit, if we were to continue, I want to make sure that if we do continue the items, that we're in no way agreeing to doing it because of what's said in these letters. Do I need to state something to that effect if we do that, or would we need to say it's not based on...
You are just taking a continuance. I mean, you really don't have to take any formal, you don't really need a formal reason or a denial of what's in the letter sent to you. But the continuance, I mean, I would probably recommend, and it sort of sounds like you're saying, well, the applications are tied together. The design review component needs to be fulfilled, and more or less that's why you want to continue both the items at the same time. But the mere fact that you are doing a continuance, if that is what the Planning Commission decides, doesn't mean that it is a reflection of what was put into a letter to you.
So if we decide to continue both items, we can also have this sent back to the design review as per request of the applicant, yes?
Yes.
That's good.
Tim,
they're
leaning forward and coughing a great deal. Is there something?
Bonnie beat me to the point. I was just going to say that if you continue it, you should continue it for a reason. So if you're going to continue it for the purposes of design review, directing it back to design review to, formalize the approval of the design of the wall, then that would give us something to do. Otherwise, why are we continuing it? So if that's the wish of the Planning Commission, then I think that would be the direction we would want you to seek or give.
I'm in favor of continuing them both, about all the applications.
The one is an agreement to continue, so we're just doing the temporary one that is the one that they object to, correct? Correct?
I'm sorry, Bart, can you repeat that?
I was saying then they're in agreement to continue the permanent
That's correct.
one, but they object to continuing the temporary solution, correct?
That's correct. They want the
Okay, so
CP
we
and
would
the
be
temporary approved.
half an agreement, okay.
And Jim, your earlier comment was we could continue the permanent one
And send it
No, my own-
and send it back to design review.
Not necessarily tied together. The temporary one, because it's temporary, to make the findings, if you recall, you said that you had to have a permanent one.
Right.
You don't need the temporary one to make the findings for the permanent one.
So we
If
could,
they just wanted to, let's just say they said, okay, take the temporary thing off the table, we want to just go forward with the permanent one, we wouldn't need to worry about that aspect of the project.
so we could deny the temporary one and we could continue the permanent one.
That's an option as well, but you can't deny it tonight because I don't believe we have a resolution for denial, do we? So if you wanted to do that, then you would have to continue both.
Now, we voted on the variance. correct?
I believe you took a straw vote to direct
Oh, it's just a
staff.
straw vote?
Yeah, because we have
Okay.
to have the,
We can vote tonight on the variance. so.
okay. Is there a motion?
Okay, so this is how I understand it. We got three things here. We got the temporary, which is 15,002. We got the permanent, which is 15,001, I believe, and then we have the negative declaration on the variance. So those three things.
So the temporary is 15,002, permanent's 15,003,
Oh, I'm sorry.
and the variance is 15,008, I believe.
Okay. So I take it that what we want to do is vote on the negative declaration for the variance.
Mhm.
We want to continue 15,003, which is the permanent one.
Yes.
And for 15,002, do we want to vote on that one? And,
Continue that one, right?
well, we could continue it, but the applicant is no longer interested in that one, correct?
No, that's not the case.
Oh, it's not the case?
They want you to approve it, I believe.
The temporary one, all right. So my feeling is to keep things simple. Why don't we continue 002 and 003, and then we'll vote on 008, the variance. Is that,
I would be supportive of that, yes.
okay. So then I will move that we continue resolutions number PC 15-002 and PC 15-003 to a date uncertain for the purpose of more concrete plans and design review.
Just a question on voting for the variance. Why doesn't it go through the standard process? Let's not deny the variance until it goes through design review and we get all the information. And why not?
I think we were
Because
clear.
we had no topography or anything. If
What
if
I-
that thing's way below the
Actually,
railroad
I'd like
track.
to mention one thing which came up with staff is that I believe the applicant's design had columns in it that went above the wall. So basically, if you want that aesthetic aspect of the wall to allow it to go slightly above, say 6 foot, 6 inches, then the variance would basically eliminate that possibility. So the design review would have somewhat their hands tied in terms of design possibilities. So you might want to give them the opportunity to consider the variance aspects of the project.
So we
as
should
well.
continue, in order to preserve that possibility, we should continue that as well.
If you want to preserve that, yeah.
All right. Then
That's a good question.
as part of my motion, I will also move that we continue PC 15-008 for the same reasons as we're doing 02 and 03.
Sorry, it's 15,006.
15-006. Quit changing the numbers on
I
me.
know.
Sorry. So that's the motion.
Do we have that?
I second.
Eileen, are you clear on,
Eileen, I'm sorry.
but are you clear, are you?
1506, I'll continue to date uncertain for purpose of more concrete time in
Okay, we have a first, we have a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, passes 6-0. Thank you. All right, let's see. Are there any reports? Oh, I'm sorry, old business.
Here we have old business.
Can't get rid of us that quickly.
Okay, old business.
Oh, I'm sorry. Appeal of building permit for B14-1374. And it's Amber Gregg again.
Good evening again. On January 7th, we came before the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission was acting as the Board of Appeals for building permits. And the applicant had requested an appeal of building permit 14-1374, and that was for a mobile home to be located in Space 22. At that time, the city was in the process of amending our nonconforming ordinance. It had already been approved by the city council to allow the action that the applicant had actually applied for in the building permit. So the Planning Commission continued the item so the nonconforming ordinance could be enacted, and it has in that time. It went into effect on February 6th in order to allow the applicant to move forward. On February 10th, staff drafted a letter stating that that nonconforming ordinance did go into effect, and they could go ahead and go forward with the permitting process and apply for an in-concept application with the planning department so they could get their California Coastal Commission approvals prior to the issuance of building permit. The staff report before you tonight states these things and asks that the Planning Commission dismiss the item as mute, as they are allowed to do it pursuant to the amendment.
Okay. Thank you. Are there questions of staff at this time? Okay. If not, would the applicant like to address this issue?
Eric Wills again, on behalf of Capo Shores, Inc. And the applicant. This is actually my home. As stated in oral and numerous written correspondence, we believe that your nonconforming use ordinance has no basis in the decision on whether to deny or approve this. We're a mobile home park, and under the mobile home laws of the state of California, the city of San Clemente takes your direction from housing and community development. You, as a city, elected to do this in 1959, 1960 maybe when it got enacted, and our viewpoint is that you're failing to live up to what you agreed to do. So you have the letter before you, you have our appeal. We believe that you need to approve this, not on the basis of your nonconforming use ordinance, but on behalf as the lead enforcement agency, which the city agreed to do back in 1960 for housing and community development. So if you go with staff and dismiss it, we're going to appeal it to City Council, and then our intention at that point is if we get denied there that we'll probably litigate this issue, because this is a big issue for Capistrano Shores in general. It's probably the main issue.
And it's your understanding that if we vote at moot, you'll get your building permit?
No, I won't get my building permit.
Okay.
Yeah, the city of San Clemente is required to give me a permit pursuant to Title 25. That's not what she's recommending. That's not what the building department's doing. None of that's happening. You guys are treating us as a stick-built building, not as a mobile home park. And we're required as a mobile home park to get a mobile home permit. If we went to housing and community development for what I was proposing, I'd get it over the counter. I've been before you guys for 7 months now, 8 months. I also have a unit number 12 that was 9 months before you guys. Now I'm at Coastal Commission, which we believe you don't have the authority to make us do that either. So this is a very, very important issue for Capistrano Shores and for the park. And that's why we're just not willing just to drop it and go forward. We want you to acknowledge that you're acting on behalf of housing and community development, which you're not willing to do. That's what this issue's about.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you a question, and given the nature of what you just said, Ajit, I want you to monitor me, please. Are you aware that with the ordinance that the Planning Commission passed earlier and the City Council passed, that if you made an application for what you want to the city at this point, that the impediments that were stopping you before are no longer there?
I'm aware that you would issue me an approval and concept that you would make me take to the Coastal Commission for approval. We believe that you don't have the authority to do that. So you don't get me what I want. You don't give me a building permit.
In other words, he believes that the city has no standing in this issue.
Correct. Yeah. But your only standing is by what you elected to do back in 1960. That's your only standing for Capistrano Shores and this application.
Okay, no, I understand. Thank you.
Wayne?
No, I just wanted to.
Okay, are there any other questions for the applicant?
If not, I'd like to move staff recommendation.
I think we need to open the public
go
hearing.
ahead.
So I'll open the public hearing, and seeing no one step forward, I'll close the public hearing and recognize Commissioner Eggleston.
I'd like to move staff recommendation that the Planning Commission dismiss the appeal as moot.
There's all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, passes 6-0. Okay, all right. So back. back to where I was before I got ahead of myself. I'm sure Don probably has something very exciting to report to us, but since he's not here tonight, he won't have a report. Jim?
I just wanted to report that the city's mobility task force had its first meeting.
Oh, great.
Don and I were both at that meeting, as were various representatives. I think, it was the initial meeting, so things are kind of, forming, but I think some of the big, I was going to come up with some nice bullet points in a slide presentation, but I just ran out of time this week, and I apologize. But some of the big things that came out of that meeting was identifying Marblehead, the Marblehead Coastal, and the I-5 Pico interchange as the big traffic areas that we have to address at this point in the city. There's other areas that came up that are certainly important, like the La Pata extension and such. But just given the resources that we have and the level of impact, that's where the Mobility Task Force said that's probably where we should concentrate our focus.
And I'm sorry, Jim, because it was getting a little late. I didn't track for a minute. The two areas are Marblehead Coastal?
Marblehead Coastal and the Pico I-5 interchange,
Okay.
which are obviously,
related.
Practically the same thing. They're right next to each other. So there's really what we want to do is come up with some essentially work plans to take back to City Council to say this is what we think needs to be worked on. So most people had homework coming out of the meeting. There was some public safety things with things like traffic enforcement. There was communication to get more word out to people in terms of what's going on and the potential impacts in their neighborhoods. There's some interaction with task for interaction with Shore Cliffs in the high school, and the PTAs, get them involved, because as the trails in Marblehead Coastal become open, for instance, students are probably going to start using those trails to get home. I was tasked with investigating some things in North Beach, doing some fact finding. What are the concerns in North Beach based on what's happening in Marblehead Coastal and things that we might want to deal with there? So I've been working on that myself. So our next meeting is, the exact date escapes me, but in March. Our next meeting is in March, where we'll come back, talk about what our research was, and look at next steps, and look at perhaps beginning to identify some work plans out of that.
So, for clarification, Jim, is the thought of the task force that you would sunset after addressing these two issues, or that you're addressing these two issues now because of the bandwidth of the task force, and these are the priority issues, and at some future date you will look at some of the other issues in the community?
The thinking is that we look at these, we focus on these for now, and the job of this particular task force is to return to City Council and say, since this is the big area, there's a lot of things going on, this is what we think needs to be worked on, here's some high-level plans perhaps. And then at that point, City Council makes a decision on, do we need a committee or a working group to move forward with these work items.
Okay. All right, thank you. Are there questions? Wayne?
Just a comment. Some time ago, we made recommendation that we have a study session with regard to in-home businesses. One of my concerns is auto repair shop inside residential garages. Mm. So I'm just wondering when we can have that study session.
Let me look at the schedule and report back to you.
Okay.
It might be as soon as the next time. If we don't have to prepare anything, it's just an open discussion.
I think an open discussion would be important to have, because I think we all have similar concerns, or some of us have some.
I don't think that we would allow a repair garage as part of the home occupation permit. It's not.
Well,
whether it happens or not is a whole different story. But it's not a permitted use.
It's happening. So.
Okay.
I mean, it doesn't just cover that specific thing, but it just home occupation permits in general. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And Jim, is your light back on?
If there was nothing else, I was going to make a motion.
I was just going to say thank you once again to all of you. It's been a real honor and a privilege to be the Assistant City Attorney here. And I'm going to miss all of you very much, and especially the staff who have been really kind to me over the last 3 years. So thank you again.
Thank you very much. And how soon is the wedding?
It's July.
Well, best wishes.
Thank you.
All right. With that, are we ready to adjourn?
If there's nothing else, I'll move we adjourn to the adjourned regular Planning Commission meeting to be held at 6 p.m. on March 9th. Jim? Jim? That is March 9th? I wanted to double check that. March 9th is our next meeting? At 6 p.m., 2015, in Council Chambers at City Hall, located at 100 Avenue, Presidio, San Clemente, California.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. We are adjourned, and I know there was some discussion about interest in carpooling, so I think we just kind of do that on